Hello and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns podcast for today, Wednesday, November 26, 2020. My name is Tom Luongo, and we have a lot to talk about. It's episode 60, and I got crypto on my mind, I think, as well as everybody else does. So with me, I could think of no better person to talk about this than what I want to talk about today, which is privacy and the Great Reset and all of that and how crypto fits into it, than my good friend Crypto Rich. You can find Crypto Rich over at his YouTube and BitTube and BitChute channels. He's a longtime advocate of cryptocurrencies and very knowledgeable about various coins that are maybe off your radar. So I want to welcome Rich to the show this morning, and we're just going to sit down and have a long chat about all of the attendant issues surrounding crypto and cryptocurrencies this morning. Good morning, Rich. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon from me, Tom, and good morning to you. Great to talk to you as ever. Been listening to the recent podcasts you've been doing that have been focusing on cryptocurrencies and enjoying it.
Well, yeah, I haven't really, I'll be honest with you, thank you, but I haven't really had a chance to, or the energy, to be honest with you, to really take it to the next level. And that's part of what this talk's going to be about today, is to take our understanding of where crypto, and certainly at this point Bitcoin as a metaphor for the entire cryptocurrency space, where that intends to take us, or where that implies that it could possibly take us, depending on how things work out. So that's what I want to talk to you about this morning, because I know I was thinking about this week's podcast, and of course we're doing this on a Wednesday when I normally publish on a Tuesday. I didn't have a good idea for a podcast this week, and then I got an email from you last night talking about, hey, let's, I got some ideas about this, and then I'm like, why don't we just have this chat as opposed to doing it in any other way? So what I want to talk about this morning is the role of Bitcoin and the cryptos in general in the context of what we're seeing in terms of the Great Reset. Now, the way I've come to just want to define the Great Reset, it's really simple. It's communism. And it's like what East Germany with robots doing all the work. And that's just the way it's going to look. And we're already seeing global pass being rolled out amongst all the travel companies, like the airlines and whatnot. I was reading Pepe Escobar's latest article before we started the call this morning. He's talking about the 4 major international summits that just took place within a week. And they're all talking about, QR codes to create a digital health pass to allow people to move and all the rest of it. So the panopticon, the Orwellian police state, whatever you want to call it, is already here. It's already being rolled out around us. And now we have to start thinking about, well, how do we preserve capital in the face of that? How do we become ungovernable if we don't want to be governed this way by these rampant communist lunatics? And I'm done like mincing words anymore. They're just commies. And anybody who's arguing with me about the definition of commie versus socialism versus this, you're just wrong. Just stop it. They're commies. That's it. Now run the script and look at what's happened in the Soviet Union in the past. Look at what's happening in the EU now, and tell me that it's any different, because it's not. It's just not. The difference is there's no violent revolution. So that's where I'm thinking this morning. So specifically, when I think about that, on privacy and the lack thereof that's going to be under, Herr Schwab and Xi Jinping's idea about what we should or should not be allowed to keep from the state. So that said, I know that you're an expert on Pirate Chain, and that's why I wanted to have you on this morning. So after that lengthy introduction, tell everybody what Pirate Chain is and why it's important.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So Pirate Chain is a decentralized cryptocurrency, so it's distributed. It's also run by a decentralized organization. So there's no organization by it. It's a community led project. So there's no company behind it, no foundation, no central point of control. It launched just over 2 years ago, and it was a fair launch, which means that the founders, whoever set it up, didn't keep any tokens or coins for themselves. It has its own chain, so it's a coin, not a token. They didn't do any kind of fundraising, so they didn't do an ICO or an SEO or anything like that, didn't raise any revenue. They don't have a development fund either, where they set aside a certain amount of coins in order to keep developing the project. What they did was they released the algorithm, and people can mine it on GPU miners on the Equihash algorithm. It's a fork of Komodo, which is a fork of Zcash, which is a fork of Bitcoin.
Yes.
And Zcash uses ZK Snark's technology to make the transactions private. Now that's zero knowledge, and I forget the rest of it, but it essentially means that nobody can see how much is going where.
Right.
But Zcash has the failing that it's not private by default. And most of the transactions are visible on the blockchain, just like they all are. All the Bitcoin transactions are visible. And then what you have is a very small private anonymity set. And if I use this as an example, supposing there are only 10 transactions every day on the Zcash blockchain, but only 3 of them are private. Over time, by tracking the 7 visible transactions every single day, it's possible to work out the addresses where they're going to and the amounts. And that's one of the failings of most private privacy cryptocurrencies, in that, like Dash, in that the privacy is optional. And I think PivX had that as well, which is a fork of Dash.
Yeah, I'll inject, so does Komodo, because Komodo actually has their Dumbler technology with ZK Snark's protocol and all the rest of it, and it's all optional.
Yeah,
and
it's that with Komodo, Tom. It's no longer a privacy coin.
Oh, it isn't?
Yeah. What happened is Komodo are going for to be a blockchain enterprise solution.
Right.
And so they removed the privacy. But where Pirate Chain came from is from the Komodo team. Right. So it was that, and I saw this on tweets and stuff and on the Komodo Discord, they were just tinkering about. You know how somebody might have tinkered about with a bit of metal underneath a car or whatever to wire it or something. They were tinkering about with some code, wondering, is it possible for transaction? And they've done that. So what you have with Pirate Chain, the coins are mined. You can see how many coins are mined to make sure that no miners are cheating the algorithm by producing more than they should for auditing purposes. But then once the coins go into their first wallet, after that, you can't see anything. You can't look into a wallet. You don't know how much has gone in. You don't know how much has gone out. You don't know where it's been sent to. If it's been sent to, it's completely invisible. Completely invisible. And you cannot get more private than invisible. If you were to send me some Pirate Chain, and by the way, anybody who's listening, if you want to know any more, it's pirate.black. That's the website. And then you can find all the other links to Discord and Telegram through there. Pirate.black. If you were to send me some Pirate Chain coins, and the ticker symbol is ARRR, which sounds
R.
That's right. Nobody would know apart from you and I. Nobody could follow that transaction.
Right.
And I actually did a competition on my Twitter account a few months ago where I posted a transaction, and I've actually also done this on my account. I said, listen, if you can tell me how much was sent to where, from which address, I'll let you have twice what's in the receiving address. Nobody.
No.
Nobody. No data to analyze. Nothing. And in some respects, that it makes Pirate Chain more anonymous than Monero or any other privacy cryptocurrency. Now,
no. Before we go further, because that was the next question on my list, which is that Monero is also 100%. There's no opt-in about privacy in Monero, right? It's all the transactions are run through their ring signature. I'm not sure if they're still using ring signatures or not. Their privacy system. So, and I know that ring signatures are not as good as ZK snarks. I don't know the technology, but from the people who know this stuff, backwards and forwards, the technology is like as like ZK snarks, then ring signatures, and then coin join or whatever. I think in that order of difficulty to hack, as it were. Yeah. So, if I'm wrong about that, please clarify.
No, well, Monero is private in that regard. When I've looked on the blockchain, I'm pretty certain, and I may be wrong here, right? Because it's been a while since I looked on the Monero blockchain, that they may be addressed. Right. But what Monero uses is ring signatures, and I don't know how many addresses it sends to. So it's a little bit like, I want to send you some Monero.
Right.
What the Monero blockchain does is it breaks up the transaction into several small packets and sends it through other made-up addresses.
Right.
So it's harder to track. Now,
I think they just recently upped the number of fake addresses within the ring signature system. I think that's one of the main things they did recently. Again, anybody who's listening to this podcast, you've got to leave comments and let us know. We know that we know where the limits of our knowledge are, but I know the Monero guys have been very, very aggressive in trying to, especially to me, tell me how great Monero is now versus the earlier versions of it. So.
Yeah, Monero is great, and they have acknowledged in a tweet that I've seen that Pirate Chain has a much, much larger anonymity set than Monero does, which makes it more private because you have to. It's like the difference. Say when I was talking about looking in 10 transactions, with Pirate Chain you're looking in 1 million transactions, and with Monero you might be looking in 10,000 or 100,000.
Right. So, and what's important for people who don't understand this, it's the point being is that if there's one real transaction and 1,000 fake transactions, that's where the anonymity comes from, because it's now almost impossible to cryptographically unlock and find the little bits and pieces of the real account number that did the transaction to then piece it back together. The bigger the anonymity set, the more potential anonymity. Remember, all cryptocurrencies stuff, every bit of it is all about the mathematics of the large number mathematics and using the law of large numbers to your advantage in order to slow somebody down from trying to find anything out. It's Bitcoin's, proof of work blockchain is based on this idea that we have so many people working on the problem, it would take 5 times that number of people to hack it, right? And it's the same kind of thing. So that's what this whole anonymity pool issue is about in terms of how to create anonymity and privacy within the privacy coins. And now we're discussing, which ones are better. So,
yeah. Now, Monero, by the way, is a great project, really good project, and it is a really good privacy coin, much better than Zcash and Dash and stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, I was saying that with Pirate Chain, there's no data on the blockchain to be analyzed. That's also the case with the Mimblewimble coins. Grin and Bean.
Right. Now, I don't know anything about Mimblewimble other than that Litecoin is going to be using it. So a little background on that would be great.
Yeah, I can't get into the technicals of it, right? It uses a different protocol. Mm-hmm. And this was the case some time back when they first launched. The problem with the Mimblewimble coins is that the IP addresses have to be exposed.
Oh, forget
it. But then you have to use Tor and everything. I don't know if they've developed that, but that was the case in the beginning when they first launched. But you do have no data. With them, you have no data on the blockchain. However, they're not resistant to double spend attacks. Now, Komodo, which isn't a privacy coin, is, and Pirate Chain is resistant to double spend attacks. And for those that are new to cryptocurrency, let me explain what that is, right? You and I are recording this, and this can, I can convert this as an MP3, and I can very easily, because it's a digital good, make another copy of it and send it on. I can do that with your blog post or with a PDF or a Word document or an Excel. Just make a copy, make many copies and send it on. The problem with digital money is it's in some kind of centralized container like our online bank accounts. Once it leaves that centralized container, how do you stop people copying it many, many times over and then passing it on? So what Satoshi Nakamoto did, he or they or she stopped created a system that stops the double spend attack. So 1 Bitcoin can only be spent at that exact time in one transaction.
Right. What has to happen is that the hashing power of the blockchain, of the proof of work blockchain, has to, in order to be able to spoof the system, you have to be able to spend your coins before the next block is verified, which in the case of Bitcoin is 10 minutes. In the case of something like Litecoin, it's 2.5 minutes. And you spend your coins multiple times. And before the blockchain knows where the false transactions are, so you spend the same coins multiple times. It's called a 51% attack. Which is that in order to be able to do that, you have to have 51% of the hashing power and the auditing power of the blockchain in order to be able to verify all of these blocks and have that overwhelm the 49% or lower who are telling the network, no, these are double spends, no, these are counterfeit, and that's how the whole blockchain can fail. I mean, Bitcoin Gold went through a 51% attack for real about a year and a half ago, and multiple 51% attacks. Smaller chains are very much susceptible to that, especially if they're drastically overvalued like Bitcoin Gold was at the time. So the reason, now explain why Komodo and or Pirate Chain are both resistant to 51% attacks, because they're not particularly large chains. So this is important.
Yeah. So what you've got with a blockchain is really a ledger, a running account of all the transactions that are taking place. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what happens with Pirate Chain is that all the transactions are hashed periodically. There's a cryptographically hashed, so it's secure. And then that hash goes onto the Komodo blockchain. By the way, what I'm saying may not be technically accurate. It's more metaphorical.
Right.
Okay. That goes.
I understand it. I understand the technology, Rich. That's not the problem. What I want you to understand is that if you understand why a blockchain is secured through the proof of work hashing, then understand that Pirate Chain has its own mining pool, right? It has its own hashing power, and it's its own chain. But that's built on Komodo. Okay. Now explain the relationship between Pirate Chain and Komodo, and then from Komodo to Bitcoin.
Yes. So the transactions on the Pirate Chain blockchain are hashed onto the Komodo blockchain. And then those transactions, including the Komodo blockchain transactions, are hashed onto the Bitcoin blockchain. So to do a double spend attack on Pirate Chain, an agent would need 51% of the Pirate Chain hashing power, plus 51% of Komodo's hashing power, plus 51% of Bitcoin's hashing power, and that ain't happening. There is the computing power, and if you were to do it, all the coins would be worthless. What's the point?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And actually built in within Komodo's system is you also have to get not only 51% of the hashing power in Komodo, you also have to get 60% of the witnesses. All right, because what happens on Komodo, because I know this well because I'm a big fan of Komodo, which is that every hour all the transactions on the Komodo blockchain are hashed into a block, sent out to a number of auditors, and then 60% of those auditors have to agree that that's the block they're going to send to the Bitcoin blockchain, which they pay for. They pay and send this Bitcoin compliant block to the Bitcoin blockchain to be audited, so that every hour there's a backup made of the Komodo blockchain, which in turn, because Komodo is a blockchain deployment platform, all of the coins on Komodo are then backed up to the Bitcoin blockchain. Pirate Chain hashing has an enormous security muling system behind it.
Yeah. And then Grin and Bean, the Mimblewimble coins, they don't have that. They're not 51% attack resistant. And Grin very recently had a double spend attack, which means that somebody comes along, gets 51% of the computing power, gets a whole bunch of coins, goes to the exchange, sells them for Monero or Pirate Chain.
Oh, yes, exactly.
And disappears into the sunset with a bag full of real private cryptocurrencies.
So what we're looking at with Pirate Chain, if I understand it correctly, and for the record, I bought some a couple of weeks ago, just so we know where everybody's incentives are. which is that it's the best of all possible worlds at this moment in time for a small privacy focused cryptocurrency, which is it has the best technology built on a triply secured platform. And honestly, I think in terms of technology, the best blockchain deployment platform out there, far better than Ethereum. But Ethereum has first mover advantage, Komodo. And then all of that is secured by Bitcoin, which has the massive first mover advantage of being itself and of being the big daddy in the room. So there's all of that stuff happening all together in this one little coin, which, by the way, is actually pretty hard to get a hold of. So, so we're saying all this, and you're probably going to want to rush out and go buy some. That in and of itself is its own interesting problem. So I just warn you that that's not as easy as, hey, let's go to Coinbase and buy some Pirate Chain, because that ain't going to happen. So.
Yeah. That isn't going to happen. I'm just looking on the website. It's on, and people can look on the website and find out for themselves. It's on several exchanges: Tradogo, CoinEx, Bitcoin.com exchange. Bitcoin.com exchange is actually quite large, and is actually Bitcoin Cash, not
right.
Bitcoin.com. They deal with Bitcoin Cash.
Right.
Galaxy, SafeTrade, Tilly, Cytex, Graviex, P2P, B2B, Polarity. Now, there's two in particular, TurtleDex and Polarity, that I want to mention, and then two others that aren't on the list that I also want to mention. Polarity and Turtle Network are decentralized exchanges, and they allow for cross-chain swaps.
Mm-hmm.
So Pirate Chain, by the way, is member of the Blockchain Privacy, Security, and Adoption Alliance, BPSAA.vision, and so's TurtleDex. And this is a group of, and it includes Komodo as well.
Yep.
And Ether1, which is a decentralized web hosting service, Sentinel, which is a decentralized VPN. They're committed to privacy and security. Mm-hmm. So what a DEX is a decentralized exchange. So that I own the keys to my wallet, like the password, I suppose, right? Is the analogy. I don't hand my coins over to any other counterparty, so there's no counterparty risk. And the exchange happens directly. So people might want to check out TurtleDex and Polarity Dex, because to a certain extent, they may be free from regulatory control because they're decentralized.
The whole movement into decentralized exchanges, one of the reasons why I was originally also very interested in Komodo is because they were the first ones doing large-scale cross-chain atomic swaps. Now, again, Rich talked about this a little bit. Cross-chain atomic swaps are you trade Bitcoin for Ethereum, but you never go through a third-party quote-unquote pool of liquidity where they're turned into Tether for, like, when you trade the Bitcoin Ethereum pair on, say, Binance or whatever else. What's going to happen is that you're going to trade behind the scenes, you trade your Bitcoin for, say, Tether or dollars or whatever, and they move into that transaction, and then a second transaction happens through a third-party pool of liquidity that then trades for Ethereum. This is why Coinbase always goes down whenever there's a massive rush into cryptocurrencies or any of the exchanges, because now you're dealing with the same problem that every other exchange is dealing with, which is that how do you manage the pool of liquidity and the order flow and all of that stuff. A cross-chain atomic swap basically says, I'm going to trade. We're going to agree, you and I. So Rich has got Ethereum, I've got Bitcoin. He turns around and says, hey, I want some Bitcoin. I'm like, yeah, I'll take Ethereum for it. And you go, okay. And we go up and to a decentralized exchange, which you post your Bitcoin, you post your Ethereum, I post my Bitcoin, and then the blockchain, and then a third party but anonymous and completely all the exchange does is create an escrow account, and holds the two coins in escrow and swaps them without ever pinging a real third party. They just do the swap without any kind of third party liquidity pool. Okay. What's that?
If I can come in there just to clarify something and add something, Komodo have actually developed Atomic Dex.
Yes.
AtomicDex.io, if people want to go and check it out, that does swaps between something like 95% of the coins that are on CoinMarketCap. It's capable of doing that. It may not have the liquidity, but it's capable of doing that. It can't as yet do some of the privacy coins like Monero and Pirate Chain. But how it works on Atomic DEX is there isn't any other party. The program, the code works it all out. Mm-hmm. So even in a escrow fund, like it might be, say, with local Bitcoins or something, or local Monero, there's no other party. So I send Ethereum, you send Bitcoin, the transaction goes through for both of us, or it doesn't go through at all.
Right.
And there's nobody else involved. It's fully peer-to-peer.
Right.
And there's something that the Komodo team are developing which involves Pirate Chain. And before I go into that, is there anything you want to say about Atomic DEX?
No, other than that's one of the things that I've used it. I used a very early version of it when I first got into Komodo back in 2018. When they could only swap a couple of different things. I think I swapped some of their older, some of their older SuperNet coins for, Komodo, just to like try it out and see how it worked. And I can tell you, even in its primitive state, it was quite impressive, right? And today,
very impressive. They're about to launch their final beta.
Right. Yeah, no, decentralized exchanges are incredibly important because at this point now there's no way to regulate the exchange through. They can't set up the Klaus Schwabs and the bad guys, for all intents and purposes, don't have any way of setting up a way to put a toll booth on the exchange because there's no organization to regulate. Like the whole purpose of all of the stuff that they're building is that there's always a toll booth somewhere. So to get around national governments and say that the patchwork federalism of the United States, well, we get around that by turning around and getting all of the companies to agree to implement the new rules. Like so that in travel, all the airlines and all the train companies and everybody else, they're all going to demand medical passports, and that's going to become industry standard. And then the government's going to be forced to adopt it. It's just like building codes or this is how they always do this stuff, right? Building codes, zoning laws, all the rest of it. You force adoption through best practice, quote unquote best practices, and the government takes those practices and codifies them. Well, and in some ways that's fine, right? It's not a terrible thing if you're talking about building codes. Right, it's not terrible, or electricity standards, or any of that stuff, right? But when you're talking about like travel restrictions, like this is how you do an end run around the Constitution, or free speech, yada yada yada. So this is where they're moving. This is where the technocracy is happening, and this is why this discussion is incredibly important. So with a DEX, there is no corporation to lean on or to set a standard. There's just code running on a website. Oops. Yeah. Now what?
Now, there is a problem with Pirate Chain and atomic swaps, which is to do with this anonymity. So supposing I'm going to send you 30 ETH and you're going to send me 1 Bitcoin, the code can actually look in our respective wallets and just check that you've sent it halfway, I've sent my 30 ETH halfway. It can actually look inside. But with Pirate Chain, I say to you, listen, you send me 1 Bitcoin, I'll send you, I don't know, 1 million Pirate Chain. Right. Well, maybe I've only just sent you 1. Right. The code doesn't know. Right. But don't worry, because the team at Komodo are working on this. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and if they don't solve it, it's fine.
No. They're solving it.
Okay, cool.
They're solving it, right? And so this isn't live yet. They're testing it privately. They're talking about it. It's the website is shurli.co, shurli.co. And how it works, see, if you wanted to send me some Bitcoin and I was going to send you some Pirate Chain, one way we could do that, if you were going to send me $100 worth, you were going to buy $100 worth of Pirate Chain. Right. One way you could do that is you could send me $1 worth of Bitcoin, I send you $1 worth of Pirate Chain. Then when you're satisfied with that, you got the transaction, you can send the next $1, and then I send the next $1. Right. So we're building it up incrementally, $1 at a time. But that is really, really laborious. Mm-hmm. Shurli automates the whole process. Right. So you would send $100 worth of Bitcoin. I would send $100 worth of Pirate Chain. And then what Shurli does is it breaks it down. into
I
small
see.
transactions.
So you say to, yeah, I own $1 worth of pirate chain. So you break with anonymity and say, yeah, I own $1 worth of pirate chain. I might own $1,000,000 worth of pirate chain, but I own $1 worth, right? But you
It's
set up
still
the
wrong.
atomic swap that you allow, that you say, okay, but we're going to transact privately. We're going to transact $100, and all anybody could possibly see is the fact that, well, okay, he admitted to having $1 of the stuff. That makes it really interesting from capital gains perspective. I'm just now thinking about, like, how does the IRS do anything at this point? What do they say?
But
I don't know.
also, nobody can see the pirate coins traveling along the blockchain.
Exactly. So it's not
So
even possible.
see, you're sending one Bitcoin from your address, and you're
hmm
doing it 100 times.
hmm
That's all they'll see.
Yeah, they'll see 100. They'll see 100 0.01%, or
Whatever it
they'll see
is.
105 Satoshi transactions. Now, the only problem I have with that is going to be the fees that go along with that. It's going to be hideously expensive to do it that way on the Bitcoin blockchain, depending on how things work out, because you're sending 100 transactions to the Bitcoin blockchain when you do that. Just
Yeah,
FYI.
but this is one of the limitations of Bitcoin, and also currently with Ethereum for atomic
Agreed.
deck, and also for Shirley. In which case, you might be better off. Okay, send me some Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin for the pirate
Right.
chain. And also,
Or Komodo or some other coin. Yes.
yeah,
With a higher throughput.
yes. Also for the transaction times for Bitcoin on the atomic decks, anyway, it can take sometimes 30 minutes for it to go through.
Sure.
So
No, it's very normal.
that's not recommended.
No, it's not. But this is nascent technology. This is bleeding edge stuff where, when I talk about the forces of decentralization overwhelming the forces of centralization, this is the very kind of thing I'm talking about. And I made the point the other night on a live stream that the people who are upset about Bitcoin stealing gold's thunder, which it's only stealing it right now. 2 months from now, gold will be ascendant and Bitcoin will be in a consolidation, and all the narratives will swap again. But right now, what people have to realize is that this is nascent technology that is also the greatest wealth transfer from rich to poor in the history of man. Okay, and all the people who've gotten rich, not all the people, but many of the people who've gotten rich, all as of right now in this first phase of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, private cryptocurrencies, they're all motivated by the very things that created Bitcoin in the first place: skepticism of the governmental system, hatred of central bank debt-based fiat currency, blah, blah, blah. They believe in privacy. They believe in anonymity. They believe in all those things. And they've got billions of dollars at their disposal to do the development work against people who have trillions of dollars available, and all they can do is point guns at you. And if you see this is asymmetric, what asymmetric warfare truly looks like. This is why I wanted to cover this today, and I'm glad you popped in to do this, because it's just when you understand it from that perspective, you realize that this is not going to end, and it doesn't matter whether gold is ultimately going to be better in the end 100 years from now, and all the cryptocurrency stuff is going to crash because math and technology reasserts gold. I don't believe that narrative, by the way, but let's just run that narrative all the way to the gold bug's end. All right. And again, I'm a guy who loves gold. Gold, ghosts, and guns, man. I own gold. I love gold. When Bitcoin's too expensive, I'll buy gold, and when gold is too expensive, I'll buy Bitcoin. I'm agnostic when it comes to this stuff, right? You go where the money tells you to go. But let's just run that argument out. Say 100 years from now, gold is reasserted as the ultimate form of wealth because all the computers crash, and we have the equivalent of the Frank Herbert Butlerian jihad, and no one trusts computers because of AI and yada yada yada. Fine. So you were right, but your grandchildren, you're not going to be around to see it. And this is why it's so very important that you understand that time is actually more important than money, and why right now Bitcoin is a superior money technology than gold, and gold coins are. And it's just that simple. And until people really wrap their brains around it, you can't do any of this. I mean, gold already has all that stuff built in, but you can't move it. The government knows when you're going to move gold. They already know that you bought it, right? It's all out there. So, and for most people outside of the United States, it's really difficult to buy it. So, especially in Europe.
You said something in a podcast last week, how you could put your Bitcoin in a hardware wallet and take it across a border or something. Mm-hmm. You don't even need to do that.
No.
because you can just memorize a 12-seed passphrase.
Yep.
And then use that to access your Bitcoins on some using, a wallet like Atomic Dex,
Yep.
or Exodus or Atomic Wallet or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to have that on the computer when you cross the border.
That's
so your
right.
computer's clean, your mobile phone's clean.
Yep. You can, and if you need to, you can encrypt that. You can figure out a way to encrypt that seed into a book you carry across the border. No one's going to stop you from taking a John Grisham novel across the border, and they're going to see little marks where you highlighted certain words. Like, yep. Really? I mean, come on. I mean, there's so many ways of remembering that, of securing that passphrase so that you never have to worry about it again.
There are wallets. Some hardware wallets coming out now, like the Apollo wallet, OPOL.io, which uses the kind of secure elements that you find in credit cards and debit cards, which is more so than Ledger and any of the other hardware wallets.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to choose your own passphrase.
Oh my.
So then I don't even need to write the 12-seed phrase down. I just need a clue to it.
Right. Exactly.
And it can be a clue that my wife knows, or my brother knows, or my sister-in-law, and so on, right? So they just need to know the clue and the answer to the clue. We write the clue down.
That's exactly right. And that's that in and of itself is fascinating. Random word passphrases are still the best. Because like memorizing a sentence from a favorite novel or something along those lines, which is the first thing that popped into my head, is still easily done because that's terrible, right? That's not secure.
Lines from a song, don't do that.
No, not secure at all. They can run that. They can run those things. But again, then you have to ask yourself the question of why would they be coming after you? And the other thing to think about that I've been thinking about very, very seriously when we start getting into stock to flow arguments for Bitcoin, and now that we're into the fourth halving and what that means, right? The four phases of Bitcoin to this point, interesting curiosity to what is this thing, to really early adoption, to cross-border speculative investment, to now we're into what I think is the store value phase of Bitcoin, where now it's taking on store value properties, right? Because it's been proven through 12 years, and they still haven't hacked SHA-256, and Tether hasn't created a Bitcoin singularity. I read another dumb article from some overly educated shithead the other day last night that said, going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of words, and I'll link to that because it's one of the dumbest freaking things I've ever read in my entire life. But whatever. Here we are. And none of that has happened. And here we are today. We're into the store of value. What's interesting about all of this is that the addressable market of Bitcoin. We start getting back into like market guy speak right now. I'm speaking to the hedge fund managers in the room, all 5 or 6 of them. You guys understand that you went from like 20 people, and I was one of them back in 2010, to 1,000 people, to 1 million, to 20 million people in stage 3, and now we're into the potential for 250 to 300 million people. Now, let me ask you a question. Talking about all this really, really hardcore privacy, you got an addressable market of 250 million people. How in the hell is the IRS going to track down enough people and police that many people to get them to hand over and beat them up for their paper wallets and their private passphrases? They're not. The time value on that is so high that it's ridiculous. And that's the big point here, is that, as we said earlier with anonymity, right, that the larger the anonymity pool, accrues more anonymity to the transactions on a blockchain. Well, more people using cryptocurrencies confers more resistance to regulatory attack, because the regulators are overwhelmed and they don't know which mole to whack. This is the thing everybody needs to get over. And this is the big thing that people like Peter Schiff, and I'm going to call them out, Mike Shedlock and Martin Armstrong and all the rest of them, don't get about this. They don't understand this, and they need to get it. And they need to stop telling people the wrong things, because you're keeping quote unquote the normies from getting into Bitcoin, when the normies can protect themselves and protect each other with Bitcoin by making more normies with Bitcoin on their balance sheets. It's crazy. It's just dumb to me, and it makes me crazy. It makes me angry to listen to, really smart people act really dumb because they are just going to talk their book because their egos are on the line. And sorry, but my ego's not on the line here.
No, I don't understand that. And Bitcoin is built on the BitTorrent technology. It's a development of that. And all the hundreds and millions of dollars that Hollywood and Bollywood and China and whoever have spent trying to stop BitTorrent, they just haven't been able to.
No. If you don't like Bitcoin, then you don't like Bit. Then I have two words for you: Pirate Bay. They can't stop the Pirate Bay, for Christ's sake.
No.
And if they have stopped the Pirate Bay to your personal house, then go to 1337.x.to and it works like a champ. Just tunnel in through a VPN, a cheap free VPN on something like Opera, and everything works. I mean, forget using a real VPN. Just like Opera browser has a VPN built in. It's not a particularly good one, and it works like a champ. And everything happens. And are you kidding me? This is the level of idiocy that you're dealing with. Over on government. Never assume that these people are all powerful, because they're not. They may be the smartest people in the room at times, but they're not smarter than the room. And they're certainly not smarter than the ones who are building all these blockchains. And certainly they're not smarter than the collective intelligence of the people now behind these private blockchains, which, again, the addressable market is now in the millions of people, not hundreds, not thousands, not tens, millions. Then what do you do? They lose is what happens. All they can do is start a war at that point, which is a different discussion for a different day. So.
Yeah, and just as Parler and Rumble have exploded with Twitter's and Facebook's and YouTube's increasing censorship, with the threat of UBI, or central bank-controlled digital currencies, then you're going to have a move into private-based cryptocurrencies. So people can escape that.
Yeah, they're going to have to. And the tipping systems are going to have to become private. I mean, something like Brave is really, really good for proving or pointing us in the right direction, like Brave and Minds and all these nascent ideas. And I think Brave is a very good way to get an on-ramp to the cryptocurrency world. Because for the normies at this point, certainly here in the United States, you're going to be tracked on the on-ramp. Right. You put $5,000 into Bitcoin. The only on-ramp you have available to you really is a KYC and AML compliant, know your customer, anti-money laundering compliant wallet of some form or another. From there, your money can go wherever it needs to go. And then understand that all they really care about is the taxes that you owe them. So assume that you're going to pay, your capital gains tax on that. And then after that, what are they going to do? They have no way legally. They can subpoena those records, but what are they going to do? What can they do? Nothing.
They can make the centralized exchanges illegal. They can make it illegal for people to hold cryptocurrency.
Yes.
But making something illegal doesn't stop people doing that thing. Notice
exactly. Black markets have existed for all of time. People. Last I checked, people still visit whores.
That's right. Despite the legal prohibition against those activities, Tom.
Last I checked, people still buy drugs.
That's right.
And as a matter of fact, that the more and hookers and drugs are a prime marketplace for cryptocurrencies. Like don't kid yourself, for a prime use case. But I mean, just because you can make it legal make it illegal doesn't mean that it's true. It will retard and slow down the adoption. But it won't stop it. Will it drive it underground? Yes. And I've made this argument as well. The more they drive these things underground, the more they restrict supply. They think they're restricting demand, but they're actually restricting supply. They're actually heightening demand and restricting available supply. Because the more they drive it underground, the less people are going to be willing to spend it. The less they're willing to spend it, and the more people know about it, and the higher the price goes, the more they demand it, and then the price just supercycle and spikes. And that's why we see the kinds of supercycle spikes every 3 or 4 years in Bitcoin that occur. Okay, and
there's a couple of things that I want to add.
Sure, absolutely.
There's on the one hand, you have increasing centralized command economies, and on the other hand, you have a burgeoning free market economy full of ingenuity and creativity, which is out to liberate itself from the constraints of the centralized command economy. So there's going to be more and more developments with regards to decentralization and privacy, and some of which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But I wanted to mention, you said this about the halving. So what that is, with Bitcoin, every 4 years, the number of Bitcoin being born every 10 minutes halves. So it's now currently 6.25 Bitcoin, new Bitcoins every 4 years that are being, every 10 minutes that are being created until 2024. Now, Pirate Chain also has a halving, and currently every minute, the blocks are every minute, 64 Pirate Chain are being created. Any moment now, imminently, there's going to go down to 32 Pirate Chain coins, R coins being born, and the halvings happen every 270 days.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that does, certainly has happened with Bitcoin, is it elevates the price range in which that asset moves in. It doesn't go down to where it was before. Because
to fill in on that point, there's something called stock to flow ratio, which Dr. Safedine Ammous wrote the book The Bitcoin Standard, which introduced this idea of stock to flow ratio and which is a way to quantify the monetary character of a commodity. Okay, because Ammous is I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, is an Austrian style economist, believes in Mises' regression theorem, just like I do, about how a commodity acquires monetary character. And what he did was to look at the amount of inflation within a commodity versus the above ground stock of it. So in case of gold, it has incredibly high stock to flow. There's hundreds of millions of tons of gold sitting in warehouses, but only a couple of thousand being produced every year. Well, Bitcoin has a similar style thing with the halvings, where fewer and fewer, the inflation rate is dropping while the stock of coins continues to rise. And because it's a purely monetary asset, it will never have any other commodity demand its use. Like silver has become completely demonetized, has a very low stock to flow ratio today, because we're now using silver as an industrial metal more than we're using it as a hedge against central bank profligacy, right? So its stock to flow ratio is falling, and therefore it's having a harder time reaching new highs, whereas gold is still rising, and that's fine. And same thing is happening with Bitcoin. So any coin that has an accelerated inflation depreciation schedule, like now Pirate Chain, I didn't even know that about Pirate Chain, so that's very interesting, every 270 days, or a smooth inflation depreciation curve like Decred, right, where every so often it's a very smooth, there's no halving into all the Decred. The inflation rate is just going away by 1%, or getting smaller by 1% every so often. I can't remember how often it is. It's like every 30 days or something like that. It's very, very small. So everybody has a different way of doing that kind of thing. It's very important to understand that that's also part of what's driving price here, stock to flow ratio.
Yes. And then a couple of other points I wanted to make. Mentions. So we're going to have ingenuity and creativity and technology advancing. And one of the projects I mentioned earlier was Sentinel.co, which is a DVPN. I recently did an interview with the foundation behind them, and that is a completely decentralized peer-to-peer VPN, and it's available now for free in testnet.
Wow.
So if people want to go to sentinel.co, they can download the testnet. It works on desktops for sure. I think also on Android. I'm not sure about iOS. And they got a decentralized VPN for free. They're going to launch the mainnet around the turn of the year, which means that's the proper final product. And what that does, if you have the wallet or the node on your computer, and I have a wallet or a node on my computer, I can pay you in any cryptocurrency, and I believe they're going to allow people to buy the VPN using Pirate Chain. So I can get a decentralized VPN service for free. Sorry, fully private, for free now. But once it's launched, fully private. Plus, it gives you an access to earning passive income in a currency outside of the central bank digital system. And there's lots like that. I do recommend people go and listen to that interview I did with the team, because it explains how it all works. It blew my mind. So you got no central point of failure or control or regulation, and a way of earning a passive income that's fully private and secure and enhances your own privacy. That's the promise.
And even if you move a non-private coin, you're moving it through a VPN, which is completely private. So you're almost doing like the atomic swaps of IP addresses to anonymize your Bitcoin transactions.
I missed that. Yes, I missed that.
I mean, there's a way of backfilling it and all that, and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, start thinking of it in those terms as well. So. Yes.
Now, there's another project that I want to mention.
Sure.
Which is also from the Komodo stable that I invite you to go and look at, which is Veruscoin, VERUSCOIN.io, Veruscoin.io. Fully decentralized, community-based project, fair launch, all of that. It's born out of the Komodo stable. And a lot of the technology that Veruscoin has developed has been exported into the Komodo blockchain.
Oh, wow.
By agreement. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that Veruscoin are developing is it works on testnet, and I don't quite understand this because the guy who's the lead developer is a complete genius. Mm. You're going to do away with exchanges. You're going to have atomic swap-like transactions on the blockchain.
Yes.
In a way that people can wrap Bitcoin in ETH to run it on the Ethereum blockchain, but then you've got the problem with Ethereum gas fees. With the Veruscoin, you've got really fast transaction times and really low fees for the transactions, but you'll be able to do that with all sorts of cryptocurrencies, and you'll be able to launch your own cryptocurrencies, and it'll all be through a GUI, easy one-click, 2 or 3 click.
Right.
But even I could manage it.
The Komodo, the blockchain deployment tools are ridiculously easy.
Yes.
They're very simple, and they're far better than things like Waves or anything like that because of the way it's designed. And it's better than Ethereum in the way it's designed because these are independent chains with their own rules. They're independent chains that all they do is then just think of Komodo as the underlayer, right? Where all these chains exist on top of, just think of Komodo as like middleware. And all these things are apps on top of it. And there's no crossover between Komodo and these daughter chains at all, other than they actually send audit blocks to each other and audit them. The same way that Komodo sends audit blocks back to the Bitcoin blockchain, all of the chains that are deployed on Komodo also send audit blocks to each other. Okay, so you're literally creating exactly that which I glommed onto the idea of 3 years ago. Said that the best way to safeguard against a 51% attack is to create a neural network of audit blocks across all of these chains. Okay, and therefore everybody is security muling everybody else, and the whole system is impossible to hack because in order to hack the smallest chain, you're going to hack the biggest one at the same time, or the 40 others that he's sending audit blocks to randomly every hour. Like that's what these guys should be doing. And that to me, and if you can do atomic swaps on chain, then you can do exactly what I just said.
Right.
And once I saw the audit block idea from Komodo, I'm like, oh, forget it. This is where security muling is going to take crypto into the future. And it's going to be, and there's nothing the central banks can do to stop this. But, I think we're still a few years out from people understanding it and deploying it. But go ahead.
Yes.
So, okay, so Veruscoin is actually pushing us towards that idea where we're going to be just doing we're just going to be doing effectively atomic swaps across all blockchains at this point. And
there are other interoperability is a big thing in the cryptocurrency space. I don't understand. I mean, there are so many chains and projects. I don't know them all. I focus on the ones that I've got a relationship with. Mm-hmm. Sentinel runs on the Ethereum blockchain currently, the free DVPN. They're moving over onto Tendermint, which runs on the Cosmos blockchain, and Cosmos apparently does really great interoperability that I don't understand and can't get into other than what I've said just now.
Right.
So
That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where every once in a while, I mean, I have to do all these other things. It's just a good opportunity to kind of catch up and talk about things that I don't know, and to find out about projects that I just don't have time to research, to be honest with you. So it's good to have had this opportunity to do this. So the important thing, all of this has to be taken into the context of this crazy, insane Great Reset. And one of the things I wanted to impress upon everyone is that they're going to come for all your property. They're in the process of bankrupting the middle class right now here in the United States, certainly in Europe. Like that's what all the lockdowns are for, in order to take all of your capital away from you. If you think that we're going to survive this in any reasonable manner, or the people who are hip to this now, and in order to survive it, you've got to be able to preserve your capital in such a way that they can't find it, right? The United States survived as World War II as the dominant economy because it wasn't bombed back to the Stone Age. Pearl Harbor was attacked. That was it. We lost, some ships. Europe was atomized. Okay? And so much of the capital of Europe was destroyed. Hundreds of years of capital destroyed. So when we're thinking about this next wave of global communism, we really have to think about it in terms of this is a digital attack on individual privacy and individual sovereignty. All right. And if we're going to survive that, well, we have to start thinking about where can we put our capital so that it doesn't get bombed back to the Stone Age. Because that's the real war that we're going to be fighting over the next 10 years. I'm already there. I don't even care if Trump, is installed as president or wins all of his court cases. I'm beyond all that now. I'm now thinking 10 years into the future. That's where I am. I don't know about you, Rich. So what do you have to say about that?
I completely agree with you. I mean, I just love your political and economic analysis. I've learned so much from you, so much you wouldn't believe, right? So I can get it how what you said. The U.S. didn't have its capital destroyed in the Second World War, so it was still able to function in a way that Europe couldn't, and Japan couldn't because they were attacked.
Yes.
But yeah, we have to preserve our own capital. And I can see the indebtedness. I used to be a social worker, Tom. You know this, right?
Right.
And I'm just there was an article I saw about what was happening in Uganda, and this was at the beginning of the lockdown, and because Uganda locked down as well. And this article was talking about the ridiculous elevation, the ridiculous number of increased calls that their child protection agency had.
Right.
I don't know over what time period. It was something like 20,000 more than they'd expected. And that's just Uganda. And I think about all over the world, domestic abuse, mental health problems, but also low-level anxiety and stress and boredom, and then people being impoverished.
Yes. Rich, I know that you and I don't do this for the money. The money is, we do this because it's the right thing to do. The money is a consequence of doing the right thing. I mean, I'm going to be honest with people when I say this. I don't care about the money. I don't care about getting rich. If I cared about getting rich, I'd have lived a completely different life. What I care about is the truth, and I care about is trying to find ways to mitigate human suffering. And I know that's why we do this, because and that's why so many in this field do it. And I understand even the best of motivations of people like the gold bugs and what I'm now calling the adolescent libertarians and the rest of them who are, they're not seeing the bigger picture. They still think they're fighting the good fight, but they're not, because they have to be open, as Lou Rockwell told me all those years ago, in his initial response to my first article about Bitcoin, which I'm going to go on record as saying is the first publicly written article for a wide audience about Bitcoin. Okay? Back on July 23rd, 2010. And what Lou said to me, and after reading the first draft, he said, "Tom, the end of this is too definitive. You're telling everybody that this is going to take over the future." Well, I was right, but he said, "But we don't know that at this point, right? What we know is that this is a great solution, and that maybe you should, as he said to me in that email, which has stuck with me ever since, let 1,000 flowers bloom. We don't know what solution is out there, but this is certainly a very interesting one, and let's figure out where we are. Let's explore all of them and not turn ourselves off to any of those solutions." And I said, okay, and I went back and I rewrote it, and then he published it. And he said, "That's perfect. That's exactly from you." I'm like, okay. And we have to realize this now. We have to be willing to be wrong. And even as right as I was about Bitcoin in 2010, I was wrong about it in 2012 through 2015, which is when the fortune was really made, right? And now it's about doing the right thing. It's about telling people, giving them the tools to defend themselves against frankly, an enemy that is insatiable in its quest for power.
Yes.
So, we have to be willing to be open to different solutions and letting 1,000 flowers bloom. And if Bitcoin isn't it, fine. Bitcoin is going to take over 10 years, fine. But between now and then, sorry guys, you should be in Bitcoin. So,
I'm like hedge, have them all. Don't
oh
be.
Yeah, I'm the.
Get other cryptos. Have gold. Have silver.
Yep. No, what I'm saying is don't have gold to the exclusion of everything else because you want to be right. Like I said, I think the other night, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich?
Yeah.
Do you want to be right or do you want to have your capital preserved? Because you could steal hundreds of millions of dollars, or not steal, but you could take back from the people who stole from you hundreds of millions of dollars worth of accumulated wealth through the expropriation of your savings through through interest and taxes and all the rest of it, if you just go out and buy some Bitcoin and let it rise while they fall. Jim Sinclair said a long time ago, back in 2005, and for those of you in the gold industry, you'll know what I'm talking about. He said, the people who are going to make the most money off the gold bull market that we saw coming then are the very people who are suppressing the price of gold today. The bad guys are going to make more money than you ever will. Okay? But that doesn't mean that you're not going to make money. Now, that was the gold bull market because they had control over gold. They missed Bitcoin completely, and they're playing catch up now. So the first $500 billion is gone, and they don't have much of a position. Okay? And supply is drying up, and demand is going up. So, to me, it's a no-brainer as to what's happening next. So, do you have anything to add before we get finished?
I absolutely agree with you. I think decentralization and privacy is the way we got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to preserve our freedom. Without privacy, there is no freedom.
Nope.
Unless I can withdraw myself from the public sphere, I'm not free.
Exactly.
So it's critical for freedom. And then
absolutely
for creativity.
Which, if we listen to the podcast I did with the Uber Boyo a couple of weeks ago, is probably the source of all value, creativity itself. And when human creativity and human ingenuity, and it's born out of the pressures of living in a world of scarcity. And knowing that, and then go look at what these people are talking about. Klaus Schwab and George Soros and all the rest of them, and what they're trying to sell to the normies and the Karens and the mask wearers and all the rest of it. What are they selling to you? Security and pablum. Not creativity, not capital formation.
They're selling bondage to us.
Yes.
Idle bondage.
Mm-hmm. Yep. East Germany with robots.
Yeah, and I think it's doomed to fail, Tom.
I do too.
It will fail because it goes against our human spirit and design.
I agree.
We have to have purpose. We have to have connection. We have to have freedom.
Yeah, we do. And they'll fail but in the process, they kill a lot of people. So, you want to be right or do you want to be alive? It's your choice. Rich, this has been an absolute blast, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. I know your schedule today was busy. Mine is not, because I'm taking the week off for the most part because I need it. So I appreciate you giving me a hand getting through this this podcast today, and we'll go from there. So everybody, I will have links to all the stuff that. Excuse me.
Sorry, Tom. So one, is always a treat for me to talk to you. I listen to every single one of your podcasts and shows when they come out, and I look forward to having you and the Duran on my channel at some point. I do want to give people a few links.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so one is, I'll make sure you got all the links for those projects and stuff, right? But one thing I want to recommend to people is follow me on bittube.tv, and they're migrating over to the PeerTube protocol, which is fully decentralized.
Beautiful.
So all their stuff will be on eventually be on a decentralized protocol, so it can't be taken down. Censorship resistant platform. And otherwise, it's just been an absolute pleasure.
As always, man, I appreciate it. And I will be willing to do media after the holidays are over. So, but this is like the last thing I want to do for, about another week or so. So, but yeah, so ping me after our holiday is over, and we'll catch up. So you guys be well. I want to remind everybody that I'll be back next Tuesday with another hopefully interesting podcast, as well as you can follow my work at tomluongo.me. You can follow me on Twitter at TFL1728, Parler at Tom Luongo, and keep your spirits up. If you're American, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Even if you're not an American, enjoy tomorrow. Okay, because tomorrow is another day, and that's important. Or as the Book of Mormon says, tomorrow is a latter day, which is hilarious. So you guys be well. You take care, and we'll talk soon. Keep your stick on the ice.